let's set the record straight. There's no argument over the choice between peace and war, but there's only one guaranteed way you can have peace, and you can have it in the next second: surrender. Admittedly, there's a risk in any course we follow other than this, but every lesson of history tells us that the greater risk lies in appeasement. And this is the specter our well-meaning liberal friends refuse to face, that their policy of accommodation is appeasement. And it gives no choice between peace and war, only between fight or surrender. If we continue to accommodate, continue to back and retreat, eventually we have to face the final demand, the ultimatum. And what then? When Nikita Khrushchev has told his people, he knows what our answer will be. He has told them that we're retreating under the pressure of the Cold War, and someday, when the time comes to deliver the final ultimatum, our surrender will be voluntary, because by that time, we will have been weakened from within spiritually, morally, and economically. He believes this because from our side he's heard voices pleading for peace at any price, or better read than dead, or as one commentator put it, he'd rather live on his knees than die on his feet. And therein lies the road to war, because those voices don't speak for the rest of us. You and I know and do not believe that life is so dear and peace so sweet as to be purchased at the price of chains and slavery. If nothing in life is worth dying for, when did this begin? Just in the face of this enemy? Or should Moses have told the children of Israel to live in slavery under the Pharaohs? Should Christ have refused the cross? Should the patriots at Concord Bridge have thrown down their guns and refused to fire the shot heard round the world? The martyrs of history were not fools. And our honored dead, who gave their lives to stop the advance of the Nazis, didn't die in vain. Where then is the road to peace? Well, it's a simple answer after all. You and I have the courage to say to our enemies, there is a price we will not pay, there is a point beyond which they must not advance. Winston Churchill said the destiny of man is not measured by material computations. In great forces around the moon and the world, we learn their spirits, not animals. He said there's something going on in time and space and beyond time and space, which, whether we like it or not, spells duty. You and I have a rendezvous with destiny. We'll preserve for our children this, the last best hope of man on earth, or we'll sentence them to take the last step into 1,000 years of darkness.
Platoon! Attention!
Keep that side up!
It chokes me up every time when I hear stories of sacrifice. And so I seek them out. I seek out those people and I seek out those stories because it gives me fuel to keep doing what I do. Well, there's many lessons we can learn from the Marine Corps. The title of the book, Leaders Eat Last, came from a conversation I actually had with a Marine. It was a 3-star general who's in charge of all Marine Corps training, officer and enlisted. And I asked him when I was talking to him a very simple question: what makes Marines so good at what they do? And he answered simply, officers eat last. And if you visit any chow hall on any Marine base anywhere in the world, what you will see when they eat at chow time is that all the Marines will line up in rank order. The most junior Marine will always eat first, the most senior Marine will always eat last. No order is given, there is no rule that says they have to do this, and nobody tells them they have to. It's one of the funny ways that it manifests when we see their perspective on leadership, how it shows up. It's just one of the funny ways it shows up, because they view leadership as a responsibility, not as a rank. It's not about being in charge, it's about taking care of those in your charge. That's what leadership really is, and the Marines embody it as a culture. It's sort of kind of amazing to see, actually.
Two minutes.
Distinguished guests, officers, chiefs, and cadets, good morning. My name is Cadet Senior Chief Julian Oldham. On behalf of the Joshua NJROTC, it is my pleasure to welcome you to the commissioning ceremony of former Joshua Cadet William Tucker Davidson. Ladies and gentlemen, please stand as we present the colors. Ladies and gentlemen, please take your seats. The commissioning ceremony you witness today is a reflection of the rich heritage of Navy and Marine Corps tradition. Custom has established that this ceremony be impressive, designed to strengthen the respect for dedicated service that is vital to any military organization. Former Cadet Davidson was a member of the Joshua NJROTC for all 4 years in high school. He was a member of the Precision Rifle Team captain, and two-time National Junior Olympic qualifier. He was also a member of the National Honor Society and maintained a 4.0 GPA in an all-honors curriculum. After graduating in 2016, he matriculated to Virginia Military Institute, where he competed as an NCAA marksman and was one of the top-ranked shooters in the Southern Conference. After graduating from VMI in May of 2020 with a Bachelor of Science degree in psychology, he advanced to Quantico, Virginia for Officer Candidate School. Midway through training at OCS, he sustained a femoral fracture. Although he was able to finish the 11-week course, when an MRI revealed the severity of his injury, it was determined that his commissioning be delayed until he fully recovered. Now, fully recovered and approved by a medical board, he will be able to pin on his bars of gold at his old alma mater.
When you're on deployment, it's two guys inside of a fighting hole. It doesn't matter what rank you are, what billet you are. They're just there to watch each other's backs. They do what's necessary to accomplish the mission.
It's not just a strict delineation of there's the officer and there's the enlisted Marines.
However,
We conduct physical training together. We go to the same classes. We go on the same length of hikes. We deploy together.
The officers, they have the plan. They spread that down through the ranks of the enlisted, and eventually it gets down to where my level, where we get the job done. The officers, the really good ones, work alongside you, and I like having leadership like that.
I have Marines that are specialized in what they do, and they're the ones that teach me. Anywhere from a private up to a senior enlisted, they know what they're doing, and I'm going to go to them, and they're going to teach me.
The senior enlisted is somebody who's come up through the ranks. He's been where they have been, and he can provide that advice to the commanding officer that the officer may not have experienced in his career.
The biggest difference between enlisted and officer is the officer has the final decision on all commands.
The mutual relationship between a commissioned officer and enlisted is just the maturity and respect. The enlisted Marine knows that the last and final decision made is going to be coming from that commissioned officer.
It definitely weighs on you at times. A good term I've heard is it's the moral burden of command. If something bad happens to one of these Marines, I will take that as my responsibility.
Well, ultimately, officers make the final decision, and they're responsible for what their platoon or their team does. A lot of the execution and the responsibility falls on the junior enlisted. So a lot of people don't realize just the amount of responsibility that they actually take on.
Marine officers go to Officers Candidate School or the Naval Academy, and enlisted Marines go to recruit training.
We have enlisted Marines running the candidates through Officer Candidate School.
You're going to be cold, you're going to be wet, and you're going to be exhausted.
And I don't think there's a service that does it better in that regard, where we can say that all the officers that lead Marines were trained by the Marines that they're supposed to go out and lead.
Confidence is the key in front of your men. Do you understand that?
Yes, sir.
It's not that hard. Get it go?
Yes, sir.
The salute that's shared between commissioned officers and enlisted men in the Marine Corps shows a sign of respect. You respect that commissioned officer.
And when the officer returns that salute, he's rendering respect to the enlisted Marine for their years of experience and their knowledge that they've gained from doing everything in their job.
Officers don't look at themselves as being here and enlisted here. We're all the same. We're equal. That's very important that the young man or woman joining the Marine Corps understands that the individual that's leading them believes that they are no better or no worse.
Second Lieutenant Davidson's mother, Miss Deborah Davidson, and his grandfather, Mr. Wade Davidson, a U.S. Marine Korean War combat veteran, will now affix gold bars to his uniform. Lieutenant Davidson's other grandfather, Sergeant Major Dan Simmons, a Vietnam combat veteran, is a member of our virtual audience and also wished Lieutenant Davidson Godspeed. Ladies and gentlemen, at this point, I would like to share with you the meaning of a commission. Special trust and confidence is more than a catchphrase. It means just that. A commissioned officer is assumed to be a person of honor and integrity. An officer in uniform is recognized as the custodian of his country's honor and safety. The history of the United States shows that the military is the most respected when it is at most needed. An officer must appreciate and effectively execute his appointed position of special trust and confidence, and must earn public respect by maintaining traditional standards of honor and devotion to duty.
I was an Army officer's son, so my father served in World War II. I grew up elementary school, California, nursery school, Hammond, Indiana. Then from California, we moved to Germany, 1949. From Germany, we moved to Fort Benjamin Harrison in Indianapolis, Indiana. In Indianapolis, Indiana, I moved to Japan. From Japan back to St. Louis, from St. Louis to West Point, and from West Point, then I took my own international career. My father was one that made it very clear that I was going to get good grades. He told me he would drop me off at West Point, and then he would come see me when I graduated. And he expected me to fulfill whatever my potential was in all the areas of military life.
Paul Buca graduated from West Point in the top 5% of his class. He then went to Stanford to get his master's degree and received airborne and ranger training during a summer break. In 1967, he arrived in Vietnam with the 187th Infantry. His brigade commander gave him 30 days as a second lieutenant, and then 30 as a first lieutenant, before giving him his first company.
Then he gave me Delta Company, 3rd of the 187th, a newly formed company, and I was the only person in it. I would form up at formation, do all the reports, Delta Company all present and accounted for, sir. I'd pass in review alone, and then he started filling me up with the rejects of all the other units. We had the reputation, we were called the clerks and the jerks. And I used to think, my God, I have a few very, very smart guys and a lot of really mean guys. What a great group to go to war with. And that unit ended up being one of the most highly decorated units in all of Vietnam. I remember asking them early on, I said, look, if you had your choice of company commanders, you wouldn't pick me. But if I had my choice of soldiers, I'd pick you. So I have the advantage. I said, I don't know what Vietnam's like, because I'm the only non-returnee in this group. But if you'll trust me, I'll bring you all home.
On March 16, 1968, Buca's 89-man company was the lead element in a massive counterattack following the Tet Offensive. They were inserted by helicopter into a suspected North Vietnamese stronghold, and for 2 days they destroyed enemy fortifications and base camps and eliminated scattered resistance. Late in the day, on March 18th, the company found a clearing and had a chance to resupply and evacuate casualties from heat exhaustion.
After we resupplied, I said, okay, reform, push into the jungle, let's keep going. And the LRP unit went about a quarter mile into the jungle and said they saw people carrying water containers. They started hearing noise and they asked permission to recon by fire. And I gave them permission to do it just as it was getting dark. And the whole mountain opened up. And it looks like we stumbled across a reinforced battalion of NVA regulars, along with remnants of a VC regular unit, the Dong Nai Regiment. The LRP group was engaged, and my medic, Doc Moore, said, sir, I'll see you later. I think I got some patience. And he ran up to the front. And one of the guys come back, said to me, he said, sir, there's a Y in a tree with a bunker or something behind it, but everybody's pinned down. And I said, what do you mean a Y in a tree? He says, it's a Y in a tree, you can't miss it. So I ran forward with my RTO. And I guess what had happened is they'd had a machine gun at ground level and a guy with an automatic weapon up in the tree. So you were getting fire from up and down. And as our guys came into this very small clearing, it's when they pinned them down. I just came around the corner and started throwing hand grenades. When the weapon stopped, I looked around and stood up. No one was firing at me. I figured that's it. And I got back. They said, where's the Y in the tree? I said, there's no more Y in that tree. We were 89 of us and probably had 15 cut off or had been killed. And I said, just go into an area. Everybody down, form the perimeter as best you can, and let's find out how many we got left and where we are. We were beyond artillery, so I couldn't bring in any supporting fires. Helicopters were above, started coming in, and all of a sudden the mountain would open up firing at the helicopters, which is usually the first sign that this is not a small unit. And so for the next 4 or 5 hours, it was just us firing off against others, firing in, hoping to hell they weren't going to just decide to overrun our little 25-yard by 10-yard position. I remember leaning down next to this rock saying, now we're all going to die. My mom's going to be asked, where'd your son die? And she'll say, where did your son die? And someone will say, Normandy, Quezon, the Argonne. And she'll have to say, coordinates XYZ, because there wasn't a name for this damn place. Right then, this young kid who had just joined us on when we were getting the refueling, he says, sir, we're kicking the hell out of them, aren't we? And I started laughing. I said, well, you know, I guess we are. I mean, we were down with fire everywhere, and we were firing with little fire and ammunition we had left. We were trying to conserve it, and all hell was raining down on us, and this kid thought we were winning. And I remember thinking, okay, it's going to get dark. We better do something. So I said, if they knew how small we were, we'd be finished. So I had everybody move out and put claymores out, distributed hand grenades to everybody, and I said, I'm going to yell out numbers, 1, 2, 3, and this to reflect the hands of a clock, the hours. And if I say 3, 6, then number 3 and number 6, throw a hand grenade. And I don't care where you throw it, just throw it. And we're going to do this all night long.
Buca did everything possible to make the enemy believe they were a much larger force to prevent them from being overrun. Throughout the night, he continued to encourage his men, shore up their defenses, and direct artillery and helicopter gunship fire against the North Vietnamese.
And the rest of the night, though, every plane in War Zone D and C came to visit us. Every helicopter, every Aussie Canberra jet, every Air Force plane. Dragon came in, he says, I can do things, can you put out some lights? I said, I don't have any lights. And then my brigade commander says, I'm coming in. And he chopped a hole in the canopy with his helicopter and says, throw on the most critically wounded, and we got them out. He kicked off some beanbag lights for me so we could mark our perimeter.
By daybreak, after the last of his casualties were evacuated and his remaining forces accounted for, Buca and his men left the area, leaving more than 150 North Vietnamese dead on the battlefield.
Next morning, we got everybody out, and I saw my first KIAs that were my men. I remember thinking, I asked them to trust me, and I promised them I'd bring them home. And those 10 guys did, but I didn't. And every day of my life, I think back what I could have done better that night. What could I have done to bring those 10 home? I guess in April of 70, I got a call from a sergeant telling me that my DSC had been upgraded to a Medal of Honor. And I told him I didn't deserve it. He said, "What's that mean?" I said, "I think I'm going to turn this down." And he said, "If I can be blunt," he said, "it's not yours to turn down." He said, "This belongs to your men. You wear it for them." To this day, I know I don't deserve it. And after all, 10 guys had died, and almost everybody who was there that night was wounded to some degree. I just didn't think that's the stuff of which medals are made. And as a result, when I'm around the other Medal of Honor recipients, I consider myself a visitor. As a young Army officer, compared to business or anything else, you have the opportunity, the burden and the privilege to look a young man in the eye and ask him to go do something. And they know what you're asking them to do in all likelihood means they're not coming back. And these American soldiers look you in the eye and they wink and say, "Got it, sir," and grab their weapon and off they go. And that is such a privilege, to wear that uniform and to be the old man, if you will, at the age of 23 or 24, that there's nothing in life that compares to that responsibility and that privilege. Nothing.
To be 23 or 24 and to be the old man. There's no other feeling like it. First, I would like to thank the leadership of Joshua ISD and the high school for supporting this event. I would also like to thank the friends, family, and teachers who have been instrumental to this young man's success. Mentorship takes many forms. Last, I would like to thank the cadets who got up early and worked to support. You have all seen the military recruiting campaigns that say, "Join us and we'll teach you how to be a mechanic. Join us and see the world. Join us and we'll send you to college." And I'm not in love with that approach because it sounds like a bribe. If you want to be a mechanic, go to trade school. If you want to see the world, see a travel agent. And if you want to go to college, pull out a student loan. Because there's only one reason to join the United States military, and that's to serve your country. With that having been said, I think that the young man that we just promoted joined for all the right reasons. And had this commissioning ceremony been left to Lieutenant Davidson, it would have been done in our living room with just a few close friends and family members present. We are here this morning because I felt it was important to educate a new generation of leaders on the significance of this event. You cadets should remember that the world steps aside for anyone who knows where they're going. Lieutenant Davidson set this goal when he was about 5 years old, and he never wavered. He understood that he had to have the mind of a scholar and the body of an athlete. He maintained his grades in high school and built himself up physically. Then, in keeping with the philosophy that warriors are not made gently, he chose to attend the toughest military college in the country. Davidson is a breed that has become increasingly rare in our country, an alpha male. As the number of World War II, Korean, and Vietnam War veterans has steadily declined, they have been replaced by boys in skinny jeans and man buns. Should I ever patronize a Starbucks, I would be happy to let one of those people serve me a coffee. I don't know that I want them leading our sons and daughters. Davidson is not cuddly. He has no filter. His aggressiveness might turn some people off. He can turn anything into a competition. But in a time of war, I think this is the guy that you want on your side. Now, he wears gold bars on his shoulders. Certainly, he should feel a sense of pride and accomplishment, but he should also feel the weight of responsibility with which he has been entrusted. Depending on the career path he chooses, either ground or air, he could be leading Marines within a year. There could be no more sacred responsibility than to lead our nation's sons and daughters, to be responsible for other people's lives. In addition to ensuring his Marines are technically and tactically proficient, he must become a parent, a teacher, a mentor, a financial advisor, and even a marriage counselor. Remember, your troops don't care how much you know until they know how much you care. So, Lieutenant Davidson, if you're lying awake at night, worrying about the welfare of your people, wondering whether or not you have attended to every detail, then you'll know that you're doing leadership right. And last, this is the beginning of your journey, not the end. Humility will be key to your success. All lieutenants should recognize that they might have the rank, but their Marines have the experience. It's okay to say, I don't know, why don't you show me? Now, I'm about to administer the oath of office. I want you to listen carefully to the words. It goes like this. I do solemnly swear that I will support and defend the Constitution of the United States against all enemies, foreign and domestic. That I will bear true faith and allegiance to the same. That I take this obligation freely without any mental reservation or purpose of evasion, and that I will well and faithfully discharge the duties of the office on which I am about to enter, so help me God. The oath he will be taking is unlike any other in the world. We're not swearing allegiance to a king or a queen or even a president, but rather the Constitution and all it represents. It is a sacred oath and a responsibility not to be taken lightly. So, Lieutenant Davidson, if you will center yourself. Raise your right hand and repeat after me. I state your name. Do solemnly swear that I will support and defend the Constitution of the United States against all enemies, foreign and domestic, that I will bear true faith and allegiance to the same, that I take this obligation freely, without any mental reservation or purpose of evasion, and that I will well and faithfully discharge the duties of the office of which I am about to enter. So help me God. Lieutenant Davidson, the floor is yours.
Thank you everyone for coming. The cadets, I know you didn't have a choice, but I appreciate you anyway. Obviously, I love and appreciate all my family members who are present, but I would like to give a special shout out to my grandpa Dan, who is in the virtual audience. I wish you could have been here. To my teachers, I'd like to thank you for preparing me for the rigors of DMI. Master Chief Linville, thanks for keeping me straight in high school and after. Mr. Cochran, Officer Hoosier, thanks for not putting me in jail. Colonel Force, thanks for looking after us while my dad was in Afghanistan. Between my grandfathers and my NJROTC instructors, I have been guided my entire life by men of accomplishment, men who have achieved success on the highest level. When I left for college in OCS, they simply expected me to succeed. I never knew failure to be an option. In 2012, my freshman class was the first to enjoy the new spaces that we are in now. We thought we were pretty good then, but it's amazing to see how much the school and the program have grown since I graduated in 2016. That has to be, in part, because the cadets are so much better than they have been. So in closing, while I appreciate this event, at this point in my career I haven't done anything, but I sure hope that you will invite me back if I ever do. Thank you.
It is said that a new officer can buy his first salute, but after that, he has to earn every one. The tradition of the first salute goes back to the colonial America when British officers were assigned an enlisted soldier who prepared the officer's equipment and maintained his uniforms. The enlisted man was also responsible for teaching his officer the regiment's history, traditions, and customs. For his service, the soldier received a small sum of money. The servant assignment and servant's pay has long ago disappeared. Today, the individual who renders the first salute receives a silver dollar representing the new officer's deep sense of gratitude for the knowledge the enlisted person has passed on to him during his training. Master Chief Linville will now come forward to render the first salute. Ladies and gentlemen, this concludes the commissioning ceremony. Second Lieutenant Davidson and his family would like to thank you for attending. Cadets, you are dismissed.